Oh, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Welcome to another episode of the Tech Preacher Podcast. Hey, man, listen, man, it's iPhone week, but I do have something to talk about, right? We get this every year, right? When we talk about iPhones, when they get released, we have this battle, Android versus Apple. When Apple released a device that add features, the Android community said, hey, we've been having these features for years. It's nothing new to us. Did the iPhone community come back and say, well, our devices is better than yours? This fight has been going on since the beginning. And, we address it as, content creators. We talk about it, right? And, people that have iPhones, they always have this thing that they are king supreme. And then people on the Android side say, hey, listen, we could do more with our devices than you guys could do on iPhones. And a lot of people, well, I don't care about all that stuff like that. And I say this all the time, man. I think there's a few reasons why people that get new iPhones or even new Galaxy phones come running YouTubers, come in the comments and fight in comments. Listen, they fight in comments, right? Or they go on social media, they fight each other. They say, my camera is better than yours, and Android would never be at the level of Apple. And people say, well, Apple would never be at the level of Android. The Galaxy phone, the S24 Ultra is way better than any iPhones that Apple would ever release. And we have this internal fighting. And you know what? Some of this fighting in turn go from social media to threats to, people DMing people and stuff like that. And even in my comments, you get these comments, man, that my phone is better than yours and your phone is crap and this is trash and all this stuff like that. You say to yourself, man, at the end of the day, I think tech enthusiasts get too deep into companies that really don't even know who they are. Think about this, right? You think anybody from Apple or Samsung know your name, know who you are? Why are you fighting for a company that don't even know who you are? Right? And I understand, man, that sometimes people claim that it's all good fun, but it does get deep, right? And there's nothing wrong with a healthy debate. I believe on both sides, on the Android and the iOS is benefits. I think people come to, YouTube content creators for validation. I bought my phone. I mean, it's the best thing since sliced bread. I just spent $1,300 on this phone. It is great. Listen, price doesn't make something great. I mean, we talk about this, right? With iOS, new iPhones, and when the Galaxy phones, I think a lot of people dictate quality with price. And it's been proven and it's been debunked by me, definitely myself, for years, right? Price don't make it better. And we talk about this, and I mentioned this a couple of times in my podcast and on my live streams, that I believe that the iPhone 13 Pro Max is the best iPhone ever made. Right? And oh my God, it's too old. You got to get with the new thing. Oh my God, Apple have innovated and bought it. And still to this day, the phone is fast, the cameras are good, and everything else in between. I don't have no problem with battery life, and it's going to get updated to the latest iOS from here to whenever Apple decides to stop. And a lot of people know the new phones go always be better. The new phone supposed to be better. See, this is where people get things conflicted and confused, right? When a new device comes out, it's supposed to be better than the older device, right? You as a future buyer have to make a decision. Is those updates is worthy of me paying more money to update and upgrade? That's the decision that you have to make. But this internal battle between iPhones and Android, and listen, even when I make this podcast talking about it, it's still going to go on forever and ever and ever. So why do people fight over Android and Apple? I went on TikTok and they had a guy, they got these guys that be out there on the street interviewing just straight people. And I followed his YouTube channel, and this guy, not this YouTube channel, this TikToker, and he go to women and he asks them, and this grinds my gears. If a guy has an Android phone, would you date him? And 99, almost 100% of every female that he interviewed said they would never date a guy with an Android phone. And I'm saying to myself, you gotta be fucking crazy. I mean, it's got to be the most nuts thing. What is it? And I'm glad I'm not dating nobody, and I'm glad I'm married, I'm settled, and I'm older and wiser now. But the younger generation, I mean, I see this stuff. And why would a woman wouldn't date a guy with an Android phone? Why? I mean, you apples to apples when we talk about price. Listen, Android phones is just as expensive than iPhones. So you can't say my phone costs more, is more premium. No, it's not that. I mean, iPhone $13.99. I mean, you have OnePlus that opens, and you have Galaxy devices. You have other devices. That's in the same price point. So that can't be the reason why a female would never date a male, right? And these younger generations, I heard that stuff. It is every time, you hear this type of stuff, you ask the question, why would a female never date a guy with an Android phone? And listen, I cannot answer that question because pound for pound, Android phones is more customized, right? They have more features. They have a lot more functionalities. You could tinker around with more with Android versus iOS. Now, on the iOS side, you have support from many companies. You have exclusive apps. I talked about this with my Blackmagic app. It's only on iOS. I mean, they have exclusive apps. Listen, that happens, right? So does that exclusive apps make it better than an Android phone? And when the iOS device has stuff like, the green bubble and blue bubble, which, hey, RCS is here, so that's no reason, right, to not answer a bubble, right? Because those, from what I understand, the bubbles going away, right? They're going one color bubbles. So with RCS, it ain't no longer, I'm not gonna respond to a green bubble and all that stuff like that. That's RCS is here, so that's gone. So what is it about people with iPhones that make them more superior than an Android user? And why wouldn't the Android users, they get into their feelings and they believe that the Galaxy phones is the best thing since sliced bread and Samsung can't do no wrong, they fight against the iPhone people. I mean, this internal fighting, us tech reviewers, we try to analyze it. Right. And they got a lot of tech reviews that add fuel to the fire. But I, as a tech enthusiast, I sit back and I look at these videos. I sit back and I think about this. I sit back and I try to come with a concept of a thought of why. That word, why. Because in my opinion, like what you like, enjoy what you like, and that's it. Android, like what you like, enjoy what you like, that's it. You don't need YouTubers to validate your purchase. You don't need listen, if you made a decision to buy an iPhone and to be an iPhone user, congratulations to you. Use your device, enjoy your device, keep it moving. If you're an Android person and you prefer, Samsung, or you prefer, OnePlus, congratulations to you. You don't need nobody to tell you nothing different. But what happens is that you have some people that do influence people and call them out of their names and stuff like that, because if they rocket an older device, if they rocket this here iPhone 12, right? You have a lot of YouTube content creators that say, that's too old, don't rock that phone, you got to upgrade, come on to the Jones, up here with the Joneses and stuff like that. Then even on the Android side, I mean, listen, if you rocking a Note 20 or S10 or a OnePlus 4 or OnePlus 3 or something, or something like that. And even in the Android ecosystem, you have a lot of people that will try to, tell you, hey, come on, catch up with us. Get your newer, latest devices and stuff like that. So it's on both sides. But why? Why do we have people that criticize people for using older devices? And why do we have Apple people that just don't want to just let it go, right? I mean, you have these internal fighting between iOS and Android folks, and it doesn't go away. And not only you lose friendship, lose friends, well, so-called friends, then you have these internal fightings on Twitter. You have these internal fightings on other social medias over a device of a company we don't own. Now, surely I have stocks in Apple, but I don't prefer an iPhone, but Samsung in the United States is not publicly traded. So, I mean, if you're in the United States, you don't have any type of ownership or any stocks into the Samsung ecosystem. So, I mean, listen, I see this, and it's confusing to a lot of people. It's confusing to me sometimes because the one word that I always ask is why? I mean, this internal fight. My camera is better than your camera. Listen, I talk about this, and man, when I hear this camera better than this camera and stuff like that, and listen, we as content creators, we do make videos with camera comparisons, right? I mean, that moves the needle. That's in the algorithm. A lot of people want to see old versus new and compare it between Android and iOS and stuff like that. So we make fun, it's supposed to be fun educational videos of cameras. Those camera videos are not to stir the pot and to make people want to fight. These camera reviews that YouTube content creators make and I make and all these people make, it just shows you a quality of two devices. That's it. Who won, who lost, that's all in the eyes of the beholder. Because here's the thing, I talk about this. If you cannot take a good photo with the phone you currently have, the newer phone ain't gonna make it no better. Now let me say, I say this, I want people to understand this. If you cannot take a photo or a video with your current device, a newer phone won't help you, right? Listen, smartphones with the computational photography and a lot of AI behind all this stuff, it handicaps the user. The smartphone is telling you what you want to see. Instead of you taking control of your footage, taking control of your video, taking control of how you want to shoot a photo, the phone is taking control over the whole photo. When you put things in auto mode, you're telling the device to choose what that algorithm in that device want to film or take that photo. Right. And we talk about this, right? Taking DNG file photos and putting it in Lightroom, adding some color, making it how you want to and stuff like that. But if you take a point and shoot, right? You just point and shoot and you're relying on the phone to make all the adjustments, everything else in between. But you can't get mad at other individuals. You can't get mad at nothing. You got to get mad at yourself if you got a horrible shot because you can't stop for a second, focus, and hit the shutter button. That's not on nobody else. That's on you. Listen, Android phones and iPhones have two different color sciences when it comes down to auto mode. iPhones tend to be a little more warmer. The colors a little more different from Android. Well, it all depends on what Android phone you buy because Android phones it's a plethora of Android phones with different algorithms, different color sciences, and everything. So you might pick up one Android phone and pick up another Android phone. You're going to see two different colors because it's auto mode. It's the device dictating the colors that it wants based off of the algorithm and the software that the person that programmed it. So is it better than the iPhone or is it better than the other Android phone? No. It's the interpretation of the company color science that's in the phone. Is it good or bad? It's up to you. And I talk about this because photos and videos, people go ape shit crazy over these cameras are good, this camera's bad. Listen, 5, maybe 8 years ago, we could make those distinctions in good versus bad, right? Cameras in the past, they had some really bad cameras, right? I mean, listen, even when you go down to the low budget, the $99 phones and all that stuff, the cameras are bad. Listen, that's the point of, you just need a device. You really don't need a camera. But when you talk about premium devices, right? All of them are good. It's up to you as a user to pick the right shot, put it in manual mode and stuff like that. And I hear, a lot of people say, well, there ain't no time for all that. I just like to take my phone out, point and shoot. If I got, something happening right now, I didn't got no time for somebody to put it in manual mode, adjust all the settings and all that stuff like that. Listen, me as a filmmaker, I don't shoot in auto mode. I feel that if a subject can't stop for a second, I feel that if I can't get the right composition, if I can't get the right white balance, if I can't get the right focus points, then I won't take the shot. And fuck it, I just never get the shot. It's no big deal. I ain't tripping. I don't shoot in auto mode. I shoot in auto mode for videos, because if I shoot in manual mode of videos, then I would give you a false pretense of how a phone does in auto mode, because most people shoot in auto mode. I personally don't shoot auto mode, and I believe most tech enthusiasts should not shoot in auto mode. But people are not camera people, so they go shoot in auto mode, and that's okay. So it all depends. You got to pick the device that gives you the better color science and a better clarity, because it's going to do the work for you. It handicaps the user. But is it better than the other device? No. Listen, I hear this all the time. We hear the same thing. The iPhone got the same cameras of the previous device, They haven't upgraded the cameras, but they upgraded the software. That's it, right? The same optics, the same this, the same that. All they did was, they still give you the same 48 megapixel, 12 megapixel, and it's triple bended and all that stuff to go up to 48 megapixels and stuff like that. But the software has changed. The color science have changed, right? Just like with the Z Fold series of devices, right? The Z Fold 4, 5, 6 got the same cameras. All they did was just upgraded the software a little bit, tweak the software so it can look, the color science look a little, saturated here and a little more clearer there. But when it comes down to the lenses and the optics, it's all the same. So is it a better camera? It's not a better camera. It's just a more tweaked software camera. The camera's just tweaked based off of software. It's not hardware. And I think people get this all mixed up when it comes down to the cameras. But why do we fight over stuff that we have no control over? Well, we do have control over cameras, but we don't have control over a lot of these things. I believe that Android and iOS is two different things. You have two different. Listen, iOS is not Android and Android is not iOS. Every time Apple release new software, release new devices, they're adding features and functionality based off of their users, based off their communities, based off of what they believe that they want the users to have. The Android community will always be like, oh my God, look, the iPhone getting a feature that we've been having for years. And that is the case. So we go attack iOS people because they are starting to get features that Android devices have had for years. So, but that's okay though. But iOS people never had those features. So you got to let them enjoy their tech. 60 hertz. I want to talk about this for a second. And for years, Apple refuses to put higher than 60 hertz on their regular devices. Listen, Apple could get away with it. I'm going to say this, man, and a lot of people going to disagree with me on this one. 60 hertz is 60 hertz. It don't matter. Listen, a lot of people say, oh, man, it's a smoother 60 hertz compared to Android. Listen, I'm going to give you two scenarios, but I want you to listen to me on the 60 hertz crap. In the Apple ecosystem, Apple know their users. They know their communities. They know that people are going to spend $800 on a 60 hertz display. They know this. They would never change that, right? Android cannot get away with that. Apple can. See, it's a fundamental difference between two platforms. In the Android ecosystem, you cannot get away with a 60 hertz display on an $800-900 phone. In the Android ecosystem, you cannot get away with that. Now, a lot of people is hypocritical. Why not criticize one and not the other? Well, because Apple is in the totally different sphere. Apple users is one of the ones that need to make those decisions. Apple users, and listen, we can explain to the Apple users why it's a bad thing not to have a and above 60 hertz display on your iPhone 16 and 16 Plus. 16 series of devices. Now you have to get the Pro models in order to get the 120 hertz. But on the regular models, you pay for 60 hertz displays, right? I think it's more education for the iOS people so they can determine that should they buy a device with a 60 hertz display. We shouldn't go out and slam the iPhone users that's keep buying devices with 60 hertz displays. That's their choice. That's their money. But we can educate them. We can tell them the reason why it should have at least a 90 or 120 hertz display. We shouldn't criticize them. We should educate them. See, it's a fundamental difference between telling a person that you stupid for buying an iPhone 16 at $900 with a 60 hertz display versus let me tell you why it's not a good move and why Apple is taking you to the cleanest of you paying $900 for a 60 hertz display. Okay, so that's the educational part. Now in the Android ecosystem, they got phones that cost $250 with 90 hertz and 120 hertz displays. Now, it's a fundamental difference in quality. Now, let's talk about that. It's a fundamental difference in quality. Now, I've seen Android devices, right, that has 120 hertz displays with super low-end processors, right, that cost $250, $399, that give you a horrible experience, right? That gives you a horrible experience. Jittery motions when you're scrolling up and down, even though it's 120 hertz displays, they will give you a horrible experience when it comes down to the refresh rates. Right? I mean, when you're scrolling up and down, it's jiggling and dragging and stuff like that. Well, that has a lot to do with the low-end processing power and poor optimization on the Android side. See, on paper, they want to say they got 120 hertz. On paper, they want to say that, you buy this device with the 120 hertz and blah, 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 right? But when you use that low-end device, you have choppiness. Well, let's take it to the iOS side. And this is one of the reasons why the iPhone folks say that they 60 hertz displays are so smoother. It's because Apple optimized. First of all, let's make sure we understand something. Apple controls the whole ecosystem, right? They control everything from the software to the optimization to everything. The algorithm, they control everything. So they can make a much smoother experience on a 60 hertz display versus an Android phone. Android has so many different variables, right? From your high ends to your low ends, right? And now we're seeing 120 hertz on low end devices that's give you horrible experiences versus a high end devices that give you very, very clean experiences. But when you have a 60 hertz display on a Android phone, it get highly criticized. And when you have a 60 hertz display on a iPhone, even though it may get criticized, but the experience is totally different from one platform to another. And listen, I do understand when Google came out with the A device at a 60 hertz at $699 or whatever the price was, $599 to $699, it got crucified, right? But Apple can do it and they don't get crucified. Again, two different communities, two different brands, two different ecosystems. So, I mean, I wanted to talk about this because I think it's serious. I think that the internal fighting need to go away. I think if you want to buy an iPhone, buy it. Enjoy your tech. If you have an older iPhone and you think you want to rock it till the wheels fall off, rock it till the wheels fall off. If you're on the Android side and you say, you know what, I love my Galaxy phone, rock it, baby. Enjoy your tech. You don't have to validate your tech coming on YouTubers and all that stuff like that. So what happens when they come on our channels and stuff like that, we critical about the device, they like to fuss and fight with content creators because they feel that my phone is way better than what you say. You lied, you got paid, you got bought and paid for by this company. Listen, nobody can't really come to me with that, right? Like I feel that one of my favorite phones is the LG V60, right? You can't say I'm getting paid by LG. LG don't exist. So I mean, and everybody have their biases, right? What device that they really love? Whether that's gonna be an iPhone or Android phone, whether that's gonna be Samsung, Motorola, OnePlus. Me, I prefer LG. Just me. Ain't nobody gonna change me until I'm ready to change myself. Listen, if you fighting over cameras, that is the last thing that you want to fight over, because the cameras is based on the user. The device ain't gonna make you no better shooter. The device ain't gonna make your camera footage look no better. It's all on you. You have to learn your cameras. And that is all I got to say about that. All right. Thank y'all guys very much. Another episode of the Tech Preacher Podcast, baby. Man, listen, I could talk all day about this stuff, man, but I know, try to keep it short and sweet. Short and sweet. All right, guys, we're going to see y'all next week. Same bat place, same bat time, baby. Oh, yeah. The Tech Preacher Podcast, baby. Later.